that there are a number of very, very nervous people at ringside. This is the year in which two heavyweights who had a chance to make big money in title fights both lost to potential setups.
What's good, kings and queens? I hope everyone's New Year's is starting out alright. For some, you're asking yourself, what is fumbling the bag? It's a term to miss out on making money or mess up in the process of getting money, causing you to not get what was said on a major level. In boxing, there has been numerous cases. With that being said, let's start the video. Prescott gained a lot of clout when he had knocked out Amir Khan in the first round, giving him his first loss. Since then, Prescott has not done much, losing twice in a row. After the second straight loss, Prescott had moved up to junior welterweight, shortly after the time Khan had moved up and picked up a title. With the immediate success of Amir Khan, that one loss on his resume against Prescott would always loom around him. With Prescott trash-talking Khan to gather attention for a rematch, Prescott found himself in a position to become Khan's mandatory opponent against Paul McCloskey. Prescott will lose in a too close to call decision, but this was not the last chance of setting up this grudge match against Amir Khan. All Prescott had to do was win against undefeated prospect Mike Alvarado for the IBF Latino belt. Prescott looked impressive early, stacking up a big lead. Alvarado started to catch up late in the fight. By the 10th and final round, Prescott is up on all three judges' scorecards. All he has to do is stand up. Alvarado cracks through the incredibly tired Prescott to drop him at the halfway point of the round. Prescott would get up, but he was completely out of it. A massive uppercut sends Prescott out on his feet and defenseless. Nady is forced to step in and stop the fight, spawning a new contender in the sport and sending Prescott out of the world rankings.
If Jay Nady separates them, he's going to stop the fight.
Good stoppage.
Very good stoppage. Prescott was out on his feet.
Eubank Jr. slowly but surely put himself in the mix as a next potential opponent for Gennady Golovkin. All he had to do was get past Liam Smith. So in the lead up to the fight, Eubank Jr. took in Roy Jones Jr. as his trainer. Instead of taking the best of Roy had to give and implementing it into his already existing style, which would have been an improvement, Chris decided to try and completely use Roy's style from offense to defense. Now, fully adapting Roy's defense is a big no. Roy's defense works for Roy when he was in his prime. He was so fast, his reflexes was insane, but if he slows down just a little bit, that's when it gets dangerous to where your night can come to an end. Roy's offense was also doing a great bit of lifting, hiding these defensive flaws. The power of Roy, his hand speed, reflexes, and killer feints was the X factor. That would have guys keep it conservative with Roy, but when you don't have that, and you have a guy who knows how to cut off the ring and keep fighters in the corner, you should not be using a Roy Jones defense, specifically on the ropes. Tarver rematch, back foot in the corner, the Johnson fight in the corner, Green in the corner. The Lebedev fight, Roy was closing the fight strong, wobbled Lebedev in the 9th, and was putting on a show in the final round. Showboating and all to get put away in the ropes. Then lastly against Enzo Macronelli. You have Eubank, who doesn't have the reflexes of a prime Roy. Speed, power, while trying to fight identically like him against a guy who is somewhat like a Glenn Johnson, but is far more athletic and equal, if not better, at putting punches together. Smith didn't really start doing anything offensively till the 4th round until he had adjusted to Eubank Jr. Then he ended the fight rather anticlimactically in the corner, leaving Chris out on his feet, forcing the ref to wave off the fight.
Him. Coming in, Eubank's in all sorts of trouble. Liam Smith's going to stop Chris Eubank Jr. Again, it's waved off by Victor Lachlan, and Liam Smith has made the statement of all statements. I think Chris Eubank thinks he's still in the fight.
Rashidi Ellis was an amazing, talented prospect that seemed to have been put on the shelf for quite a while despite coming off a massive win in 2020 against undefeated boxing prospect Alexis Rocha, in which Ellis already came off a massive layoff due to the pandemic and probably politics. You can tell Ellis wanted to say something in interviews but just held back and just remained professional. In 2022, Ellis's career was put back on track after signing to PBC, which at this moment holds a stacked stable in the welterweight division. Ellis has his first fight in 2 years, which ends very quickly. His next fight was against heavy-handed Roman Villa. The narrative coming into this fight is probably setting up a fight with rising star Boots Ennis. Pretty much it's looking like it's a win and you're it type of deal to be in that exclusive mix to be in a big fight. Just look at what Rashidi has to offer as a fighter. So fight night, this was Ellis's time to shine and he sure was looking good. Exactly what I was expecting to see on this stage because I've been following this man's career for quite a while. Villa started to turn it up in a later portion of the fight, but it was not enough to win on the scorecards coming into the 12th round, unless we see a Cleveland Browns level of collapse. Just maybe, which is a Hail Mary, Villa pulls it off. Halfway through the 12th, Ellis gets dropped by Villa. Ellis then gets dropped again in the final 6 seconds. Due to these two knockdowns, Villa pulls away with a close majority decision win. It's 2008. Roy Jones Jr. ran a 2-year campaign back into the ranks with an underrated, brilliant performance against Prince Badi Ajamu for the WBO NBO title.
Yeah, proud man. It's still as flash as ever, and it's all over now. It's all over now, and I don't think there's going to be many friendly gestures here from Ajamu.
Then a huge win against undefeated prospect, IBF ranked Anthony Hanshaw.
And now he lands the combination. And a little flash by Roy Jones Jr. There he is, a little dancing dance. Oh, nice. They got him. Big left hook and the right hand. Back to the knees. Hanshaw's in trouble. And it is for the knockdown.
This put Roy Jones back into the spotlight, ranked in the top 5 by Ring Magazine. The fight with Trinidad displayed that Roy can still perform despite his shortcomings in the mid-2000s, also proving that there was a market waiting for Roy to make it back on this stage. With the help of Tito's star power, this fight brought in 500,000 pay-per-view buys. This would set up a big fight with Welsh legend and light heavyweight champion Joe Calzaghe. If Roy were to win, this would set up a mega rematch against Bernard Hopkins, who was present front row at the fight, anxiously hoping Roy will pull off the upset. Hopkins, the month prior, completely dismantled the middleweight champion Kelly Pavlik, which had put him back in the mix for a big fight. Unfortunately, despite Roy coming close in the first round where Joe's legs were completely gone, he still managed to recover so quickly, make it out the round to change the tide and win the fight by unanimous decision. There was another opportunity to set up this anticipated rematch, a less risky, more conservative route. And early 2009 have his comeback fight against former contender Omar Shika, in which he would dominate him, winning by 5th round stoppage for the WBO NBO title. Roy then would fight former super middleweight title holder Jeff Lacey. This was a fight to set up a big fight in Australia against former WBA and current IBO cruiserweight champ Danny Green. Most who knew Danny Green just known him for that guy in the sparring tapes from 2004 going in the trenches with James Toney. Danny was fighting on the co-main on the Jones-Lacey event. Green did his business, stopping his guy in the 5th round, and Roy did his end of the bargain, putting on one of his greatest performances. Watching this live on pay-per-view was a nostalgic treat because you saw everything you loved with Roy, and then some, followed up with Roy and Danny doing a post-fight promo calling each other out.
I think insult on top of injury. Yeah. You let the guy just walk away and you're talking to the camera, talking to everybody else. Roy Jones is like a preacher giving a real good message right now.
Yeah.
it was 100% certain that Hopkins and Golden Boy that Roy was going to win his fight against Green. Their rematch was a done deal, more than likely to be shown on HBO pay-per-view with an HBO Countdown documentary, or if we're really lucky, a 24/7. Both Roy and Hopkins fought on the same day in different time zones. Since this was before social media and news coming in real time, the Roy fight was first, but Hopkins refused to watch the fight till after his fight was finished. Unfortunately, Roy would get dropped in the first round, was unable to defend himself, thus causing the fight to be stopped. If Roy was just able to get a hold or two, or really anything, Danny would have been more than likely punched out coming into the second round. Hopkins watching the fight after his fight was an utter shock and disappointment. This completely ruined the promotion for the rematch. HBO refused to take the fight. They did quietly promote the fight, from what I remember, on their Comcast on-demand services. The pay-per-view bombed, ticket sales were not good, and it was rumored that tickets were practically being given away to people for free that happened to be booking a room at the Mandalay Bay for that weekend. Due to the combination of poor ticket sales and pay-per-view buys, Roy pretty much fought for free, which, not knowing the financial situation with the sales of the fight when I was watching it live, fight in general just felt a bit strange. Both guys were out there not really trying to hurt one another. Played it conservative. You did have one crazy moment, but overall it was hollow. Back with the video in a short bit. Be sure to hit that like button to help the rest of the good old subscribers be able to view this video. This video's comment section question is, what are 3 fights, boxing or MMA, you would always introduce to someone new to the sport or try to get them into the sport? Leave in the comments. Mine is the Pacquiao-Marquez series, and one real gem of a fight, Samsak Sichichachawan versus Mahar Mashipur for the WBA Super Bantamweight title. This fight was so crazy action-wise, upon being submitted, Ring Magazine had to acknowledge this fight as a 2006 Fight of the Year, despite knowing most who read this publication would not have easy access viewing this fight due to it only being broadcasted in France. Tommy was quickly becoming a massive draw in the heavyweight division thanks to his role in the Rocky movie, and a crowd-friendly style that somewhat resembled the likes of Mike Tyson. And since Mike was in prison during this time, that further inflated Morrison's brand. It's 1991, and Tommy's finally in line to fight for the title against WBO champ Ray Mercer. Morrison was seen as the immediate favorite coming into the fight, and boxing analysts was already looking ahead of this fight and looking at who will be Morrison's next fight, which would be against rising star Lennox Lewis.
Well, I have to say that I got to tell you the truth. I was leaning toward Ray Mercer very strongly. I've been saying Ray Mercer. I just changed my mind. Tommy Morrison, I think he's in better shape.
Yeah, it's really funny. I said exactly, I feel exactly this.
Holyfield and Bo out of the picture at the moment. This was one of the most meaningful matchups to be made in the early 90s. All Morrison had to do was get past Ray Mercer. Mercer, who was an Olympic gold medalist, the champion, and fought better competition at that time, undoubtedly took this personal, making it his mission to make a statement and ruin such plans for the heavyweight star. This is a recipe for a great fight. Morrison started the fight rather quick, being first and just beating Mercer to the punch, easily raking in the first 3 rounds. Mercer, coming into the 4th round, started to pick it up offensively, and then it showed Morrison may have been punched out.
Mercer.
By this point in Morrison's career, he had not fought past the 6th round, despite fighting 3 10-round fights, but those ended very early. Mercer, who had fought much less than Morrison with the record of 17-0, coming in started fighting 10-rounders by his 9th pro bout and had already fought 3 12-rounders, 2 going the distance. The 5th round, Morrison hit the wall, lost his concentration, got stuck in the corner, and Mercer took full advantage and got Morrison out of there. Morrison would quickly rebound back into the mix as Lennox Lewis is on the cusp of becoming the WBC champion. Morrison's coming out party to become the WBO champ June of '93 against George Foreman 50 days later to successfully defend the title. The unification with Lennox Lewis is a done deal. Morrison does not have to fight anymore for the rest of the year. According to the HBO broadcast, this was Morrison's decision to go forward with this year-ender fight.
Tommy Morrison himself wants this fight. I think he he has to beat a fighter like this to prove to himself that he can take on a boxer like a Lennox Lewis. But there are a lot of nervous people here, and we've seen stranger things happen.
What you're saying is that he had the Lewis fight in the pocket. He didn't have to take this fight. He did it, not his handlers, huh?
$7.5 million for that fight, and he's making about a fifth of that for this fight.
Obviously, if he wins, it will make the promotion for the Lewis fight massive. Morrison would start the fight quick and get bent on the defensive. He would buckle him and get him hurt, but Morrison was leaving himself too open, letting his hands go. Bent, obviously aware that the fight was going to get here, is displaying a very tight guard, waiting to time Morrison with the perfectly placed shot. At that moment here, Morrison should have taken a step back because Bent had found his rhythm and got Morrison's timing locked in. Morrison rushes in again with the same pattern, which Bent wins the exchange and drops Morrison.
Oh, Tommy stunned by right hand, and down goes Morrison.
Morrison's legs are gone, and unfortunately he was not able to recover, resulting in a massive TKO upset win for Bent. $7.5 million guaranteed, plus whatever revenue that may come with the lead up to this big fight, down the drain. Morrison would rebound in a big way after giving Razor Ruddock his second round loss in a 6th round thriller that would set up a Lewis fight for the WBC title.
10 more seconds, and it's a long one. He will not do it.
Morrison's loss to Bent actually affected both his and Lewis's purse, as both received just above $2 million. Morrison at 2.1 and Lewis at 2.4. Mike Jones was a rising prospect and contender. Jones was very talented at the time, a force in the weight class, but he would throw himself out of well-controlled situations. The fight with Soto Caras will foreshadow what is in store. Yes, this was certainly entertaining, but this is possibly the dumbest, most boneheaded move I've ever seen in a fight. Mike is loading up on all of his shots for a full minute. Some shots did get through. Caras did get cut, but a lot missed. Jones was so punched out and tired from that offense that he was barely able to defend himself from Caras. Jones was immobilized for 6 straight rounds. He didn't pick it back up really offensively till the final 3 rounds, which was just enough to score a draw on Harold Letterman's scorecards. Mike would be awarded a razor-thin unanimous decision, and obviously there would be a rematch. Jones would fight a lot more controlled in the rematch and win more convincingly on the scorecards. Fast forward a year later, Mike is in line to fight for the vacant IBF title against Randall Bailey. This would most certainly put Jones in the mix to unify against Manny Pacquiao if he were to get past Tim Bradley, since Mike Jones is a top-ranked fighter. So Randall Bailey is one of the hardest punchers of all time, from 140 pounds to 147. Nevada rules: if 2 fighters are fighting at welterweight, they are allowed to choose what size gloves they want to use in a fight, but both parties must come to agreement. The A side, Mike Jones, for some reason wanted to use 8-ounce gloves, which is absolutely ridiculous because obviously Bailey is going to take what he can get, and this favors Bailey way more than it favors Jones, who has every single advantage in this matchup. So Jones easily breaks in every round. It's a walk in the park because Randall is trying to look for one big shot and Jones is fighting incredibly intelligent. Hope is lost in Bailey from his corner to where John David Jackson gives up. Bailey is mentally out of the fight despite physically being in the best shape of his career. The chief second of Bailey's corner took over and delivered one of the most memorable and inspiring corner speeches of the 2010s.
Come on, man. You need him whip his ass now. He's no tomorrow now. Whip his ass. You understand?
Shortly later, Bailey wakes up, finally finds his opening, and drops Mike Jones. Mike gets up easily and finishes the round.
See the reason
Mike is so far up the cards, all he has to do, sync the fight up, hold, whatever, and he's the champion. The knockdown had completely rattled Jones' rhythm to where he was overly on the defensive trying to protect himself from the straight hand, which little he knew, Bailey is also known for amazing uppercuts. With Jones' high guard, he left himself not only open, but there was no way he could have seen that uppercut coming, which resulted him getting knocked out on the spot. Very sad, as this completely ruined a young promising fighter's career, but also cemented another fighter's career who has had numerous setbacks and finally got his due.
Look at John David Jackson's reaction after he was thoroughly disgusted for several preceding rounds.
Coming into 2019, Matchroom Sport took the boxing world by storm, and they were starting to hold a major political power in the new glamour division of heavyweight after Anthony Joshua had finished picking up all but one of the belts coming into 2019. The final belt belonging to Deontay Wilder, which that matchup was being held up due to politics, and Wilder's team trying to get above Joshua in negotiations by trying to go after Tyson Fury. A win there would put Wilder as a lineal champion, and that would change how negotiations are for the Joshua fight. To expand on Joshua's dominance in the heavyweight division, he went to America to make his US debut against Big Baby Miller. That matchup got cancelled, and Andy Ruiz, who was available, ranked by the belt organizations, and fight shape ready, filled in Miller's place. The fight would start off well for Joshua. It all went downhill when Joshua dropped Ruiz and began to not use his long range finishing the fight, but instead fighting Ruiz right in his range, which is not a very cash money move because Ruiz's reach is incredibly short for heavyweight standards. Ruiz drops Joshua in the process, and Joshua was never able to really recover, getting exhausted in the process where he was just a sitting duck for Ruiz's shots, especially since Joshua never adjusted to staying out of Ruiz's range and holding the second he gets close. Ruiz will later stop Joshua in the 7th round. Despite Joshua coming back and regaining the titles, politically this ruined Joshua and Matchroom's hold in the weight class as an A-side, as the winner of the Wilder Fury rematch will decide who is not only the lineal champion, but the Ring Magazine champion as well. Due to Joshua's loss, that had moved Fury and Wilder to number 1 and number 2 in the Ring Magazine ranks. After Mike Tyson's loss against Lennox Lewis, he came back hungry and motivated, especially since he had a mountain of debt to pay off. In his comeback fight, he went up against Clifford E. Tyson looked incredibly impressive, fast, sharp, using beautiful head movement, certainly many shades of his former self, then to knock Clifford out 49 seconds into the fight. Since Tyson was finally approaching the end of his Showtime contract, this caught the eye of top-ranking Bob Arum. Lennox Lewis was about to retire, the heavyweight division was in utter chaos of a promotion power grab, there was some massive fights to be made. Bob Arum and HBO was going to carefully guide Tyson to that. This plan was designed to get Tyson out of his $38 million of debt. This HBO deal was worth $80 million. This would involve crowd-pleasing fights that would provide highlight reel wins, a possible title fight against Vitaly Klitschko, and a mega fight with Roy Jones Jr. as there were talks and the lead-up set up by Jay Prince. All Tyson had to do was win his next fight against Danny Williams. The fight was actually going Tyson's way, yet stunned Williams, but it would take a turn for the worst when Tyson had torn a ligament in his knee. This not only messed up Tyson's mobility and defense, but the worst part is he has no power on his shots because he can't set himself up like he wants to. Danny knew something was wrong, and it gave him confidence to press forward with his offense, which eventually led to Williams dropping Tyson with a barrage of shots and Tyson unable to make the count.
He's in big trouble and he goes down. Only the ropes kept him out. 38-year-old Mike Tyson. We could be on the brink of a sensation.
When this happened, it was really sad because you don't know where his career will go, as this is the end of the road. But in retrospect, it was more of a short-term gain and a short-term loss. He would have been out of debt, but the public persona would have been the same towards him, which was mostly nasty and negative.
Instead of hearing people say, wow, there goes Mike Tyson. The great, he's so fantastic, he says. Now he hears negative things. In any situation where Mike was under pressure, there was no stability anymore. There was no deep inner belief that he had to control himself.
The award-winning 2008 Tyson documentary, after his retirement of his side of the story, really did open many of his life, changing the public perception of Tyson. He got a chance to star in a very successful movie, revitalizing his career to where he took this second chance and really came out victorious where he's debt-free, coming into the 2020s. Amazing steady income and wealth that he could pass on to his children. A night and day change in the general public's perception of him.
As a fan of Mike Tyson, I love him, and I don't mean, I love you, man. I'm just disappointed and hurt at how much comfort white people have around you now. I don't like it.
As one of the greatest and wholesome combat stories to come by.
You need to know that I'm very proud of you and pleased with you and the way you've gone with your life and doing the right thing. And I would love to meet your wife sometime. Tell her I said good job. Thank you. Okay. God willing. Good luck. I'll see you this morning. Thank you, sir. Thank you, man.
And on top of that, this is when boxers fumble the bag. For more installments, be sure to like, share, and if you're new, subscribe. Subscribe to Patreon for Patreon-backed projects and early access. I'm Office Honcho, and I'm out.